in my life during this COVID period, I love motorcycles, and and when you get on a motorcycle, you do put other things aside because you better pay attention, right? And in the moment, be in the moment, as opposed to where I was, or even so much where I'm going. Right. It's in that moment I got to focus. And there are another group of guys that I ride with, so we were able to connect. Yeah. And for me, it was that. Right. Just sort of okay.
And you're right. Motorcycles they're unique. They have it's trying. There are certain things that do that. I had a Jeep, as you know.
Yes, I remember that Jeep.
Older Jeeps, not the new ones, but the old Jeeps that we all drove. And this was an old Jeep. Yeah. It's the same fraternity. You're driving. Yes. I remember getting my Jeep, and I was driving along one day, and another Jeep was coming my way, and the next thing I know, the guy's got his hand out the window at me. Yeah, and I'm thinking, waving. Isn't that nice? He's waving to me, right? Yeah. But Jeeps, you soon learn that you always wave, and motorcycles do the same thing to motorcycles.
It's a fraternity.
It's this kind of connection. Right. But you're right. Yeah. So, but where do we have our connections? Because we do need to be connected. Right. And I think those pieces get difficult. So when we talk about some of the, if we want to get to some of the practical stuff, there's a Rumi, who was a 13th century poet and philosopher. He used to ask this question, do you pay regular visits to yourself?
Good question.
Do you pay regular visits to yourself? And this is what I would really say, the beginning of good self-care is the acknowledgement piece. The second step is being able to talk to yourself. Right. Being able to be honest about who I am and what's going on and where I am and what I'm, and again, not in that, and beginning not with judgment. Right. So compassion to others, and I'm going to come back to what you said earlier in a minute, but compassion begins with not knowing. Compassion begins with, when I first meet somebody, compassion truly and empathy truly begins with, tell me your story. I don't know your story. Right. Even if I think I know it. Right. Tell me. You tell me what I need to know. It's not knowing. So often, I've had people come in to me. I've had physicians, doctors who have come in and they think they know what's wrong with me. They say, well, here's, you got this. I said, well, hold it a minute. What I really want is this, right? So how many times have you felt when you've talked to somebody that they've already made up their mind what you need, and so they're trying to give it to you, right? True compassion begins with genuinely not knowing. I don't know. Tell me. Even although you may think I know, I'm going to begin with not knowing. So you quoted, Jesus' words about love yourself. I would like to paraphrase that into have compassion with others, but you have compassion with yourself.
Harder to do, isn't it?
Harder to do. But if we're going to do that with others, how do we do that with ourselves? Well, can we start with ourselves? Genuinely saying, okay, self, where am I at? Let's really think this through. What areas of my life are out of balance right now? Where are the points of my life that I'm struggling the most? Where are the pieces that are creating the most pain? And what is the suffering that I've added around that? And so there's this honest evaluation of ourselves. That until we're prepared to do that, self-care is just a hodgepodge of trying this and trying that. I need to know what I'm looking for. So the story, then I'll tell you the story of my own experience with this briefly, is that, and like all of us, we jump into our work and our professions, and we, as you quoted so eloquently, nobody goes out to work to fail. And so, I started my counseling work, and I was older, but I've never done this before, And so listening and hearing and wanting to be helpful and all of those pieces. Well, after after a year or so, I realized that I got that point where I looked at my calendar and I was angry because it was booked.
Right.
Even although that was my income.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
You know,
and
how
you
am I
did the
going to put
booking.
food on the table if they don't? But I was angry that I was seeing so many people.
Right. Right.
So I that was my first crack at saying, okay, what's wrong with me? And I had and as we suffer, everybody, the people we love the most suffer.
Right.
Because we suffer by not being our best.
Yes.
And we can't be who we need to be for others.
Right.
And these are the very people we love.
Right.
And so that became difficult for me to function in a way that was helpful. And so I reached a really low point where I said, I can't keep doing this.
Right.
I need to do this, I want to do this, but I can't keep doing it the way I've been doing it.
Okay.
So there were some significant changes that happened.
And how did you transition? How did you do that?
So the first one came about by exactly what I said, recognizing, okay, the belief that I should be, I am the one who is, people come to look for help from.
Right.
Means that I should have all the answers. That's such a false.
Right.
And that's where I would, if I were teaching pastors, that would be the main slide.
Right.
Everybody believes you have the answer, but if you start to believe that about yourself, you're in trouble.
That's the scary part, right?
That's the scary part.
Yeah.
So once I did that, then I had to look for some practical ways, and I had some. I sought out some help, and so the very first thing I learned to do was to separate what I do from who I am in a way that doesn't get mixed up. And the way in which I did that was two things I did. At the office, where I had my counseling office, there were three of us that shared a complex. But what I would do when I finished, I actually had a change of clothes. So I would change my clothes at the end.
Oh, okay.
And what I would tell myself is, okay, everything I have lived through stays here.
Right. Excellent.
I'm changing into my clothes to allow me to go to the life I live.
Right.
And then the second thing I did was I took some time, now not every day, and I'll talk about that in a minute, depending on the day, what did I need to do before I went home? I don't want to go home carrying the struggles that I'm having here. I don't want that, because I've learned quickly that the people who suffer the most from that are the people I love the most. So I have to, sometimes, it would involve, I'd take longer to get home. Sometimes I'd just go right home. It wasn't an issue.
Right.
But that self-awareness piece. What has this day done to me?
Right.
And some days I can go through and see six people in a counseling context, and the day hasn't, I'm fine.
Right.
It hasn't issued me.
Right.
Sometimes I can go through a day where I've seen two people, and I'm absolutely in a state.
Right.
But I have to be able to acknowledge what's going on with me.
Right.
So that was the first, the part at which things started to change.
And I really like that part about changing the set of clothes and sort of discarding. It's powerful.
It was a visible way to ritualize what I need to be doing on the inside.
What I also found during those periods of time when I was, and I'd written about that in Sage magazine, that when I was coming to work and I was feeling most down, I would physically look up and very careful how I walked, because my physical being, my mind, will follow. If I'm downcast, then I feel it. If I look up, all of a sudden I started to feel better, shoulders back. I started to put on what I wanted to be. And putting on those clothes, is another way of telling your mind, okay, we're changing now. We're doing something different. I like
it's an acknowledgement.
And then thinking through
it's not
afterwards.
magic, but it's an important. I think there are things we can do, and that's. I think we've been raised in a way that kind of puts those things down and say, oh, that you shouldn't do that. You know, the shouldn'ts, right?
Right.
I should be strong enough to be able to do this. But it's amazing to me how those little things can make exactly the way in which we walk, where we look, how we attend to our own being.
Right.
So the other thing, and I've talked to your staff about this too, is that when I went to hospice, I started this program with myself. So at the end of each day, for the last 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I would just try to find a quiet place and just say, okay, what has this day done to me? How, out of all the things that I've encountered, the stories, the work, what do I feel is left with me?
Right.
What have I taken with me? So, and I don't want to be a reductionist, but I discovered that there were 3 areas that were significant to my mental health, my spiritual health, even my physical health.
Right.
And those 3 areas are best described as peace, strength, and safety or security. Now, I joke with people that because I'm a man, I have to get things backwards. So I get to things backwards. So at the end of the day, if I say, okay, what has this day left me with? What am I feeling? And if I'm feeling really uneasy and tension and all over, just jittery, like I've had 12 cups of coffee, too many, what I need is I need to find some peace. I just need to be peace. So then the next stage is, okay, what do I do? Who do I talk to? Where do I go? That when I'm finished, I feel peace.
Yes.
Now, this is where, this takes some work, but boy, it helps. So what is it? And I encourage people, I'm looking, and that can, it's so different.
Different for different people,
it's different for everybody. And I don't judge them. I just need to know that when you finish, you feel peaceful. Sometimes it's picking up the phone and talking to somebody. Sometimes it's just being quiet, meditating, reading. Some people read scripture, listening to music. What is it that kind of calms you?
Yes. My wife recently, I was on my way home, and I gave her a quick call, hands-free, and and she said, "Yeah, hi," and I started chatting. She said, "You just finished work, did you?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "This is your debrief time, is it?"
Exactly. It is.
And I found, that for me was that debrief.
Just kind of just talking through what I needed to talk through. To just kind of be able to calm that.
How are you doing? Yes.
And but we need to know that about ourselves, right?
And it's that comforting person for me on the other end.
And who is that, right? Identifying them. The other way, if I'm looking at the end of my day and I'm exhausted, I'm just exhausted, I don't need peace. I need some strength. Where do I go? Who do I talk to? What do I do that when I finish gives me strength? And this is where it gets confusing, because sometimes people will say to me, when I'm exhausted, I go to the gym. And I'm thinking, how do you go to the gym and work
when
out
you're
heavy?
Exhausted,
But they say, I can be exhausted going into the gym, work out for an hour,
and then
come back out feeling strong. I don't care what you do. I just need to know what it is for you. Personally, that doesn't do it for me. But I understand that can be for people. So, and it can't be the same as peace. So whatever it is for you that gives you strength has to be different. And I'll explain that in a second. So what is it? What do you do? Who do you see? What's your routine that gives you strength? The third one is, if I'm at the end of the day and I am worried, I'm anxious about the future, I need to feel safe. A story about that I've told before is that I'll never forget, I went in to see a couple for the first time in the office. They came into hospice. And this couple, their son, their 19-year-old son had just tragically been killed in an accident. And that was 5 days previous to me seeing, so you can imagine the trauma still present. So as we begin to talk, and I found out their story, they have 2 boys. I have 2 boys. The ages of their 2 boys are exactly the ages of my 2 boys. In fact, the one who died, his birthday is the same birthday as my son. So the more they talked, you can imagine
right.
what that did to me.
Start
right?
to feel it, yeah.
And so at the end of that day,
carry that.
First thing I did was pick up the phone. Both my boys lived out of the city. They lived in different cities.
Right.
Pick up the phone to talk to my boys.
Right.
I needed to hear their voice.
Yeah. Give strength.
Just to give me some safety around the feeling so anxious.
Yeah.
Right? So if I'm anxious and I need to feel safe, sometimes people say to me, when I'm feeling anxious and I'm feeling really worried, I have a favorite chair or a favorite place in the house. My house helps me feel safe. I don't know.
Right.
Where is that for you? What is it that you need to do that when you're done, you feel safe?
You know, it's as a parent, we've often said this in different ways. You never stop being a parent. Doesn't matter how old your children are, and when they are safe, you feel safe. Yeah.
Right.
Everything's okay.
Yeah. So, and I say to people, it can be an item. I mean, one of the things that for strength for me was, I have a stone that comes from a particular place that's connected to a family member who went through a very difficult time and overcame their struggle. And I went and took a stone from where that happened, and for me, that's when I'm needing to feel stronger around certain things.
Right.
Just holding that stone and knowing, okay, you know what, this is how my grandpa did it, and I can do that.
And the memory of a story.
And the memory, and just that piece connects me to something.
It's interesting.
Those pieces around, again, practical ways that from moving from work to home is the beginning of self-care.
Yes.
How do I look after myself after leaving a day where I've been working with suffering and pain and with struggle and with good times? It's not all bad, right? Enjoying the laughter and everything else. So some days I have those pieces that are very strong. Other days it's fine. I don't need a lot. And that's okay. I don't. It's not like I have to have those things. But being able to acknowledge. So the reason why I need different activities for each thing is two things. I have to know what I need. So, I don't know if you've ever had the experience of, your partner saying to you, darling saying to you something about what's wrong with you, and I'll say, I don't know, but I'm just not, something's off. I don't know what's wrong. If I don't know what's wrong, how do I know how to fix it? Right.
So
I need to be able to identify what's going on. That takes time. Emotionally, it takes time. But then once I've identified, I have to know where to go to get what I need. Right. So I need to know what it is in my life. That give me certain things. So, and that's not hard, but we need to identify. For you, motorcycles, you've already talked about. Riding that motorcycle, what that does to you. For me, getting in my kayak and being out on the water, what does that do to me? Just going for walks, just being with certain people. What are the things? And it's so individual. That's why I'm not, I could come with a care plan and give you all these 10 things to do, but I don't know if they're right for you. I need you to figure out what it is that's best for me to look after who I am. In fact, I think you owe that to yourself. How can you be that for others if you can't be that for yourself? So sometimes when I'm in a session with a healthcare worker who's really struggling, I will do the old reverse chair. I'll say to them, okay, so if you were me, what would you say to you? What would you want me to tell you?
Good question.
Because I believe we know what we need if we can spend the time to really look at that.
And think about it.
And so, I think developing, self-care comes from developing an awareness of who we are, an awareness of what's happening to us, being, and giving ourselves permission to be able to do what we need without trying to justify to anybody else. So I know it's not possible for healthcare workers the same as it is for me, but when I was doing my work at hospice, every noon hour I would leave the building. I would go for a walk. I would go, and the reason for that was partly because I needed to just clear my head, not only from what has happened, but to get ready for what will happen.
Right.
So there's this transition period again.
But even that moment where you've talked before about finding that 5 minutes or whatever it is, just downtime. Get rid of some of those sensate experiences that just bombard us on every side, and finding that.
So that's I love this, and one of my colleagues did a great slide on it. The difference between mindfulness, and mindful. And the picture of mindfulness is that ability to be present with where we are. I'm right here. I'm not back there in that patient's room. I'm here. This is where I am. I'm sitting in this chair. I'm grounded to this floor. I'm here. I'm here with you. I am mindful. Mindful is, my mind is just what you described, just jam-packed with everything that's happened, with what I have to do when I get home, and that you cannot find peace in that kind of experience. So,
or
practicing,
strength or security.
And being, so again, that mindfulness is, this is where I am. I can't change what has happened.
But
and I can't do anything about what's going to happen. So and the difference between depression and anxiety at one level is depression is about what has happened. Anxiety is about what could happen. Neither of them you can, in the present, you can do anything about. So being mindful is simply about reminding yourself, this is where I am. Yeah, I've had a rough morning, but that was my morning.
And some people find it helpful just breathing.
So there's a lot of things we do with breathing that can help that mindfulness bring calmness. So breathing, even just deep breaths, slowly, just breathing, closing our eyes, being present with who I am. What am I experiencing? And not worrying about your mind going here and there, because it'll do that. But when it does, just bringing it back. So again, I think those are practices that help us to be healthy in the moment, not to be back here or over here.
So thank you for sharing with us today, and I'm looking forward to our next session.